activists in Michigan collected 750,000 signatures in order to get the abortion rights amendment onto the November ballot. That far exceeded the 425,000 signatures it actually needed to qualify. But the measure was still blocked. What needs to happen for Michigan's ballot initiative to pass at this point?
Well, I think what we need to see happen is perhaps a new board of canvassers in the state of Michigan. To be very clear, although the advocates for abortion rights received over 750,000 signatures to place this referendum on the ballot, it was actually denied by the state board of canvassers, which split along partisan lines, with two of the Republicans voting to keep it off the ballot and the two Democrats preferring to keep it on the ballot. I just want to emphasize here that when the Supreme Court decided Dobbs in June, it insisted that it was merely returning the issue of abortion back to the states for quote unquote democratic deliberation. Placing a ballot initiative with 750,000 signatures on the ballot is very much the embodiment of democratic deliberation. But we've seen here that this is not what the Republicans in Michigan want. They know that this referendum would have wide popular support in the state, and they basically decided that because of formatting errors, a lack of spaces or too many spaces, this ballot initiative cannot go to the people. And again, it is a distortion of the democratic process.
You mentioned that board of canvassers, and it did deadlock 2-2 with the Republicans blocking it. And now it looks like it'll go to the courts, and we'll see what happens there. But the very fact that they could block it like that and ignore the will of the number of people who signed that petition, it's amazing. And another example of, I think, a broken democracy right now, this time in Michigan. Michelle, I want to switch back over to South Carolina. The exceptions for rape and incest in South Carolina would only be allowed up until the 12th week of pregnancy. From your experience, would you say it's common for victims to need abortions after that 12-week mark?
Well, of course, an individual may need to terminate a pregnancy up until even the 9th month badly. And oftentimes at that point, it's in cases where an individual may, in fact, wish that the pregnancy were healthy, that the pregnancy could be sustained. It's worth noting that it's not only a 12-week ban in that regard, but it also requires that there are police reports that are filed. And if we look at the reality of what happens in cases of rape or incest, very often it is its own additional burden to file that police report. Let's imagine a 10-year-old girl, an 11-year-old girl, which is not too hard to do given what we know has been part of national discourse. Where is she to file that police report? How is she going to get to the precinct? What precinct does she know that she needs to get to? And even if that is done, a family member takes her there, she gets help getting there, she may, in fact, then be separated from her family and placed in foster care. She might be placed in a religiously based foster care home where people are oppositional to abortion. Just because some of these exceptions exist doesn't actually mean that they will be accessible for the people who need these exceptions to exist.
That's such an important point about laws in theory and then how they actually work, whether people fully have access to what's available. And Melissa, what problems might victims run into in trying to prove that their unwanted pregnancy is the result of rape or incest?
The very fact that you have to establish that an unwanted pregnancy is the result of rape and incest is by itself a barrier to those who have to report. So finding the proof, being able to show if this is something that is happening within the family. In the case of incest, this may have its own particular burdens, particularly if the individual is a minor and living at home among the family members. This may, again, as Michelle says, expose them to being left out of the family, perhaps being turned over to the care of the state in the form of foster care or religiously based homes for children. All of this is incredibly difficult and just creates more barriers. And this is especially exacerbated among communities of color, where they may already have a lot of distrust about reporting to law enforcement in the first instance, irrespective of the circumstances of this reporting requirement.